One Piece is a story that has been spanning for over 1,000 episodes and counting. It is, and we're being moderate, nothing short of a masterpiece. As a result, many episodes were simply remarkable, leaving the audience with an open mouth, chills running down their spine, or in some occasions, even making the audience simply cry. But have you ever wondered which is the best episode in each One Piece arc? I mean, think about Marineford. Which episode was the best? Because let me tell you, there are arcs like that where it was one banger episode after the next. A small note before we begin. Obviously, this selection is debatable. So if there's any arc you think another episode deserved to be placed there instead of the one we chose, you can let us know in the comments down below. Well, let's begin with Romance Dawn arc. Here, I have 2 episodes in mind that stand out. The first is the Luffy vs. Alvida episode. Luffy officially introduces himself as the goofy and lovable protagonist that he is, and destroys Alvida from the get-go. No long talks, no wasting time. Just Luffy extending his arm and landing it on Alvida's face. The second episode I'm considering is, of course, the episode in which Shanks lost his arm protecting Luffy. In that episode, not only that epic moment with Shanks happened, we also got a lot more epic moments. Shanks lets the bandits beat him up without doing anything, Luffy eats a devil fruit, Lucky Roux kills the bandit once he pulled a gun, and other than the moment we mentioned with Shanks losing his arm, we also had the memorable and iconic moment in which Luffy receives the straw hat from Shanks. Now, so many significant things happening in one single episode? I think it's quite clear that yeah, episode 4 is by far the best episode we saw in Romance Dawn arc. Now, this was just the beginning, and we still have 27 more arcs left to analyze. And let's see by the end of the video with how many arcs our choice will differ from yours, huh? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep going. Next arc on the list is Orangetown arc. The arc begins with Luffy and Zoro out at sea, lost and starving due to the fact that neither of them have any sense of direction. Luffy spots a bird in the air and uses his devil fruit powers to try and catch it so that they can eat it. However, the bird turns out to be much larger than expected and flies off with Luffy in its mouth. Zoro rows after him, and after a series of events as Luffy and Zoro aimlessly sail across the sea, they end up at Orangetown, an island under siege by the clown pirate Buggy and his crew. And so which, in my opinion, was the best episode here? Well, the episode where we got the backstory of Chow Chow was quite emotional, and one of my favorite episodes of that arc. But if I had to name only one, then I think that would be the episode in which Luffy kicked Buggy in, well, I think you know where. I mean, Buggy had the ability to detach parts of his body and have them fly as long as his own legs remained on the ground. And Buggy did seem quite unbeatable in early episodes, especially when considering that slashes did not work on him. So he started flying around chasing people while, well, leaving the most vulnerable parts of his body for Luffy to do exactly what he did here. On to one of the most underappreciated arcs, Syrup Village arc. Luffy, Zoro, and Nami arrive at Syrup Village looking for a ship, where they meet Usopp, the local village liar. After they learn of a secret plot against Usopp's friend Kaya, they decide they have no other choice but to help him defeat Captain Kuro in order to save her. Here, I don't have any insane episodes in mind. I guess the episode in which Mary is introduced can be quite iconic. The episode where Kuro is finally defeated is also pretty nice, but my personal favorite is the episode in which Luffy gets in the way of Django's chakram that were aimed at Nami and protects her by getting the weapon straight at his head. A kind of brutal scene that, by the way, was different and much more gruesome in the manga, which showed Luffy's resolve and determination as a captain. And next, it's time for Sanji to join the crew in Baratie arc. The Straw Hat Pirates meet Johnny and Yosaku, which are old friends of Zoro, and who direct them to the restaurant ship Baratie, a floating oasis in the middle of the ocean. There, they meet the chef Sanji, who Luffy naturally wishes to recruit as his crew's cook. However, Pirate Admiral Don Krieg sets his sights on the Baratie as a replacement for his devastated fleet, and the restaurant soon comes under siege. The best episodes of this arc, in my opinion, are the following. The first is the episode in which, naturally, Don Krieg is finished off. My guy Luffy literally punches him through an iron-spiked armor to knock him out. The second episode is, of course, the Zoro versus Mihawk fight. Now, this episode was as significant to the rest of the story as it gets. Not only did we get a glimpse of the mountain Zoro's meant to climb, in the sense that he got a taste of how strong Mihawk really is, but we also got his iconic promise of never losing again, which, so far, he's kept 100%. The third episode I have in mind is, of course, the one where Sanji says goodbye to the owner Zeph and his crew. And of course, we couldn't leave out the episode with Sanji's backstory, in which Zeph saved Sanji from drowning and also starved himself to death so that Sanji had something to eat for as long as it took for help to arrive. Among the four, even though it's a difficult choice, I actually think I'd have to go for Mihawk versus Zoro here. Moving on to Arlong Park. The arc starts with Zoro and Usopp stop tracking Nami, who stole the Going Merry, all the way to Kokoyashi Village, Nami's hometown. There they discover that it's ruled by Arlong and the Arlong Pirates, a pirate crew of fishmen, of which Nami is a member despite her will. After Luffy and his crew arrive on the island, Nami's past and true motives come to light, and naturally, because of that, Luffy had to intervene. The best episodes here, in my opinion, are two. The first is, of course, the one in which Arlong is finally defeated, with that epic move of Luffy that brought the entire library Arlong kept to the ground. But the second episode, and the one that I personally will choose, is of course, the famous walk to Arlong Park. Luffy giving the hat to Nami, collecting his crew, and going on a badass walk towards Arlong. That thing was top tier hype, ready to happen. Moving on now to Loguetown. The Straw Hat Pirates stop at the city where Goldie Roger was born and executed in order to get supplies before heading to the Grand Line. However, there they come across the powerful Marine captain, Smoker, as well as Buggy. Being a Logia type, Luffy is powerless against Smoker, as again, Luffy's got no idea about the concept of Haki and how it could help him counter the Logia Devil Fruit users as of yet. The first major thing that happens in this arc is of course the moment Dragon appears after Smoker detains Luffy. We get the first glimpse of Luffy's father and the status he holds in the world of One Piece. The second episode I particularly loved was the episode in which Luffy sat inside a bar and the barman thought he was seeing Roger. That moment gave me chills, as the resemblance to Roger and the fact that Luffy is meant for greatness already shows from the very first arcs of the show. However, the third episode, and the one I'll be choosing as best of the arc, is the following, the one in which Luffy is detained by Buggy and about to be executed. Here, instead of crying, being angry, or begging for his life, Luffy, without even knowing, reacts in the same way that Roger reacted at the moment he was about to be killed. On the exact same executioner stand, on the almost exact same situation. Both of them reacted in the exact same way. They smiled, and the reaction of everyone in the crowd made this moment even more epic. On to Reverse Island arc. The Straw Hat Pirates make their way to Reverse Mountain in order to enter the Grand Line. As they descend the mountain, they come face to face with not only the giant whale Laboon, but also the mysterious agents Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday. My favorite episodes here are two. First is the one where the Straw Hats meet Crocus. And let's just say this guy is the true definition of a rage bait boss. His conversation with the Straw Hats was pure One Piece comedy. Now the second episode, which was quite good too, was the one where Luffy drew the Straw Hats Jolly Roger on Laboon after they finally got him to calm down. Both are nice episodes, but I think Crocus's introduction was a bit better in my opinion. Next up, it's Whiskey Peak. With a log pose now in hand, the Straw Hat Pirates are directed towards Whiskey Peak, a town that welcomes pirates with open arms and treats them like celebrities. However, things are not as they seem. In the end, the Straw Hats end up being ambushed by the Baroque Works. But what was the result of that? Zoro, while also being drunk by the way, sliced and defeated every single one of the Baroque Works agents standing in his way. So overall, I won't mention any other episodes here. Zoro slicing and destroying the Baroque Works on his own was, in my opinion, the best episode of this arc. That brings us to Little Garden. There, they encounter two giants, Dory and Broggy, who have been dueling one another on the island for the past century. After befriending the giants, the crew is ambushed anew by Baroque Works. You see, Mr. Five uses his Devil Fruit ability to trap Zoro, Nami, Luffy, Broggy, and Vivi. The one who managed to free them was Usopp with the help of Karoo, all while Sanji tricked Crocodile through a Den Mushi and thus stopped reinforcements from arriving. The best episode here, I think, is the one in which Sanji takes the phone and speaks to Doflamingo while also calling himself Mr. Prince. A peak foreshadowing moment, as we'll later come to find out. On to the arc that Luffy finally recruited the position he most wanted. And if you think that position's doctor, well, no. I'm talking about emergency food. This arc is none other than Drum Island. You see, after Nami falls ill with an unknown disease, the Straw Hat Pirates travel to Drum Island in search of a doctor. There, the crew meets a bizarre talking reindeer named Tony Chopper, who helps them fend off the country's former ruthless king, Wapol. The best episodes here are a few in my eyes. First of all, we need to speak about the episode in which Luffy was literally holding both Sanji and Nami on his back while climbing a frozen mountain with his bare hands. And for those who don't know, that thing burns like crazy. The second episode worth considering is the one where Chopper gave Dr. Hiluluk a poisoned mushroom, thinking he found the Amiodake mushroom. Not wanting to disappoint him, Hiluluk even went ahead and ate it. Plus, his quote was quite memorable. When do you think people die? When they are shot through the heart by the bullet of a pistol? No. When they are ravaged by an incurable disease? No. When they drink a soup made from a poisonous mushroom? No. It's when they are forgotten. Now for the third option. Even though a pretty close call with the episode I just mentioned, it is the one I'll actually be choosing here. This is the episode in which Luffy Luffy gave his speech about the meaning of flags, and even took a head-on bazooka bomb just to protect the flag. This was also the defining moment that made Chopper join the group. So overall, I'll be going with this moment. Moving on to Alabasta. The Straw Hats finally reach the desert kingdom of Alabasta and begin their race across the land in order to prevent a massive war between the kingdom's royal guards and the rebels. However, as it turns out, the true perpetrator of the war was Mr. Zero, also known as Crocodile, along with the remaining members of Baroque Works. The two episodes I think are the most worth considering is the one where Luffy finally defeats Crocodile, and the second being the episode in which we had Vivi's farewell, along with the X mark on the hands of all Straw Hats to remember their promise and alliance. Between the two, I think Crocodile's defeat was more epic, so I'm gonna go with that. Up next, we have the Jaya arc. You see, after the Straw Hat Pirates' log post points them towards the sky, they travel to the island of Jaya and work with Mont Blanc Cricket to determine if there is indeed an island in the sky. While in the pirate-populated port town of Mocktown, Luffy ends up in conflict with the overconfident Bellamy that asks Luffy, quote, if he knows how to even throw a punch, all before being put to sleep by a single punch from Luffy, of course. Naturally, this is the first episode we're gonna consider as the best of the arc, but the second episode came a few episodes later, where two things happened. One was the bar fight, in which Luffy told Zoro to not react, and thus both of them were beaten by the Bellamy pirates. This showed both the parallel with Shanks' case, but also the loyalty Zoro has to Luffy. Also in that same episode, we had the iconic Dreams Never End moment with Blackbeard. Between the two episodes I mentioned, I think the last one takes this easily. On to Skypiea, where the Straw Hats learn of its connections to Jaya and Mont Blanc Nolan's tale of a lost city of gold. As the crew embarks in search of treasure, they become entangled in a three-way war between the native Skypeans, the vengeful Shandians, and the land's cruel self-proclaimed god, Enel. The three main episodes I have in mind are Enel's final defeat and the ringing of the golden bell. That was a major significance to all Skypeans. The second episode I have in mind is Luffy's version of Ultra Instinct, but in a much more Luffy-like stupid way. And of course, the third episode I have in mind is Sanji's Thanks, I Needed a Light episode. Among the three, due to significance and pure hype, I think I'm gonna go ahead with the first one. Up next, Long Ring Long Land arc. You see, upon arriving on Long Ring Long Land, the Straw Hat Pirates are ambushed by the Foxy Pirates and challenged to a Davy back fight, with the prize being none other than Chopper. While among other things, the most epic part was Afro Luffy, of course. Not many great episodes here, but it was a nice comedic relief before more serious arcs. The episode I would choose for this arc is none other than where Aokiji appeared, and among the things he could do, well, he just asked Nami on a date, since according to him, she had huge bazonkas. And since we mentioned more serious arcs, we now have to talk about Water 7. The Straw Hats arrive at the oceanic metropolis of Water 7 to find a shipwright who can repair the Going Merry, as well as potentially join their crew. They soon become targets of the Frankie family, the city's underground gang, and become involved in all kinds of messy situations with Cypherpole agents like Rob Lucci, that at the time was undercover as a spy. For me, the best episodes here are three. The first is Usopp versus Luffy, pretty iconic episode that showed us what Usopp can do when he's actually determined to do what it takes. The second episode is the walk to Frankie's house. After Usopp was beaten and had the money stolen from him, the Straw Hats lock in and start going on badass walks towards the Frankie house. Then they proceed to destroy all of Frankie's crew as payback for what they did to Usopp. However, the episode I will have to choose here is, of course, Merry's death. Now, if you told me a few years ago that I'd find myself crying over a dead ship, I'd probably think that you're crazy. But here we are with Oda's brilliance. Even something that silly makes sense when you orchestrate it well enough. But after Water 7 arc, we've got the most epic arc as of yet. Enies Lobby. The Straw Hats, Soga King, the Frankie family all arrive at Enies Lobby to rescue Nico, Robin, and Frankie. Standing in their way, however, are the forces of the world government, including its deadly assassination unit, CP9. Here, I have three episodes I'm considering, all of which are bangers to be honest. The first is Robin's I Want to Live, followed by the burning of the world government flag. This was as epic as it gets, from start to finish. Then, the second moment is, of course, Luffy's iconic second gear pose and first use against Bluno. Then, finally, we have Luffy's insane fight against Rob Lucci, in which, after long efforts and an insane amount of willpower, Luffy defeats an obviously stronger opponent. I think among the three episodes, I'd have to go for the first one, aka Burning of the World Government's Flag. The next arc in line is Brook's arc, aka the Thriller Bark arc. During the Straw Hats' journey through the Florian Triangle, the crew stumbles upon Brook. Naturally, like any wise man would do upon seeing a literal skeleton speaking, Luffy's first thought was to ask him to join join their crew. Long story short, Brook joins the Straw Hats. But which was the best episode in this arc? Well, there were quite some nice moments like Luffy defeating Moria, Luffy going Nightmare Luffy, Zoro defeating Ryuma, but in my opinion, the best episode was none other than the Nothing Happened episode. It's by far the most iconic moment of that arc, and in my opinion, Zoro's most iconic moment as of yet. So naturally, this is our selection for Thriller Bark. The next arc in line is Sabaody Archipelago. You see the Straw Hats arrive at the final island of the Grand Line's first half, Sabaody Archipelago. While searching for a means to pass under the Red Line into the New World, they come into conflict with a deadly human trading ring that sells to the world nobles. Here for me, 2 episodes stand out. The first was the episode in which Zoro met St. Charlos, and well, unlike everyone that were bowing in front of him, Zoro was just casually staring back at him. Brother even went ahead and asked him if he, quote, needs directions or something. Well, not only St. Charlos was shocked about the audacity, but really? Zoro of all people offering to give directions? Come on. The second episode, and the one that I'll actually be choosing here, is of course the one in which Luffy rearranged St. Charlos's dental records. That punch was as satisfying as it gets. So that episode gets the #1 spot in my eyes. Moving on to Amazon Lily. After his defeat at the hands of Kuma at the Sabaody Archipelago, Luffy is sent flying and crash lands on Amazon Lily, an island exclusive to women. When Luffy lands there, well, the ladies decide to give him a bath. We won't get into the details of it, but yeah, you know what happens next. In the same episode, all the girls gather to see Luffy being naked, and, well, my boy just stands there proud. I think that was the best episode in that arc. After Amazon Lily, we now get Impel Down. Here, we see Garp visiting Ace at Impel Down and expressing his disappointment that both Luffy and Ace turned to piracy when he wished for them to be Marines. Ace counters it wouldn't have mattered anyway, since both have the blood of world-class criminals in them. The 2 episodes I think were the best here are the following. The first is the Luffy versus Magellan fight, in which Magellan, well, let's put it simply, obliterated Luffy. The second episode I'm considering, and the one I'll actually be choosing, is the one where Blackbeard arrives in order to recruit inmates and add to his crew. Here, Blackbeard's real plans start to unveil, and I think it was a major point of development in the story. And now, we reach the arc where, I'm gonna be honest, selecting only one episode as the best in the arc is gonna be real difficult. Marineford. Having failed to reach Ace before he was transferred, Luffy and his companions escape from Impel Down and travel to Marineford, the base of Marine headquarters. All around the world, people voice their opinions on the execution and whether Whitebeard will really show up. A few doubt his strength due to his old age and the number of the Marine forces. Others, who personally met Whitebeard and even retired from piracy just by being around him, think otherwise. But who was right? Of course, the ones who thought that Whitebeard was an absolute beast. So which episode was the best here? Whoa, man, where do I even begin? The iconic death of Whitebeard, along with his last words of the One Piece is real, followed by the badass speech of the narrator about Whitebeard's life, was just one that comes to mind. We also have the episode in which Blackbeard steals the Gura Gura no Mi from Whitebeard and officially eats his second devil fruit. The episode where Whitebeard punches Akainu was also epic. And the episode in which Ace is killed is amazing. The episode in which Ace is freed and runs wild alongside Luffy's amazing. Luffy's first use of Conqueror's Haki is just top tier. Luffy antagonizing with Whitebeard is great. And of course, Shanks' arrival was as epic as it gets. Overall, all those amazing moments and episodes occurring during Marineford kinda makes it difficult to choose. But if I had to pick only one, I think Whitebeard's death, along with his iconic last words, take the edge here. On to Fishman Island arc. There, the crew learns the history of Fisher Tiger and the ongoing discrimination between humans and fishmen, while the new Fishman pirates plot to overtake Ryugu Kingdom and make fishmen be recognized as the supreme race. In doing so, they naturally intend to harm a lot of people, both humans and fishmen alike. Obviously, Luffy objects to that. The best episodes I have in mind are 3. The first is Luffy's badass entrance and use of Conqueror's Haki, in which he takes down 10,000 fishmen in one go. The second episode I'm considering is Luffy's first Red Hawk use in the canon story. He did use it before that in a movie, but not in one of the canon episodes. This was a great tribute towards Ace. The actual episode I'll be choosing, however, is another one. Jinbei's blood transfusion for Luffy. It showed that deep down, fishmen and humans, despite their differences, share the same blood and could and should coexist together. It sent a powerful message of unity and anti-racism, both for One Piece and the entire world. Moving on to our next arc in line, Punk Hazard. You see, upon finally entering the New World, the Straw Hat Pirates immediately receive a distress call from residents of Punk Hazard, who state that a samurai is attacking them. Without hesitation, Luffy sets out to the Blazing Island, with Vice Admiral Smoker hot on his tail. On the supposedly death-ridden and empty island, the Straw Hats soon must contend with both the G5 Marines, led by Vice Admiral Smoker, and the mad scientist Caesar Clown, whose deadly experiments must be stopped. 2 episodes here in mind, both of which share something in common. You see, the first episode I'm thinking of is the one in which Zoro cut Monet in half. The badass stare, speech, and then actions from Zoro, showing that this guy is not playing around. And for the second episode, which I will actually choose, well, you'll see what I mean when I said common trait. Law cutting Virgo in half, with, oh, you know, just half of Punk Hazard Island along with him. You know, nothing much. Moving on, we've got one of the best arcs in One Piece, Dressrosa. Here, the Straw Hats, along with Trafalgar Law, together with Kinemon, Momonosuke, and the captured Caesar Clown, travel there with the goal of taking down the nation's king, Warlord of the Sea, Don Quixote Doflamingo. A number of great fights and episodes took place during this arc, including Frankie versus Senor Pink, Zoro versus Pika, Zoro versus Fujitora, and the meteor he summoned, Luffy versus Doflamingo, Sabo's return, and of course, the God Usopp moment. Among all of those, I think I'd have to give this to Luffy's episode in which he goes 4th gear for the first time and destroys Doflamingo. I mean, that episode was just simply epic. Up next, Zoar. You see, after defeating Doflamingo, the Straw Hats, Trafalgar Law, Kinemon, and Kanjuro arrive on Zou in order to reunite with Sanji and the others. However, they discover that Sanji has been swept up in a set of personal and political entanglements, and that Zou has been subjected to a siege by Jack of the Beast Pirates. What are these political entanglements, you might ask? His arranged marriage to Pudding. The best episode here, in my opinion, is hands down 1. No other candidates to be considered. This is none other than the Raizo is safe episode. It was a major plot twist that no one saw coming, and it was beyond any doubt as badass as it gets. Moving on to Whole Cake Island arc. Luffy, Nami, Chopper, Brook, and the Minx, Peekums, Pedro, and Carrot head to Whole Cake Island, where Big Mom of the 4 Emperors resides. Nicknamed the Sanji Retrieval Team, the group seeks to rescue their crewmate Sanji from his arranged marriage with Charlotte Pudding, set up to finalize a political alliance between the Charlotte family and the Vinsmoke family. However, during their operation, they become involved in a plot to assassinate Big Mom herself. The 3 episodes I'm considering are Luffy going 4th gear Snake Man for the first time, Sanji kicking Luffy, and Brook versus Big Mom. Among the 3 of them, I think I'm gonna go with the one that stuck with me the most, and the one I consider one of the most underrated moments in One Piece, the Sanji and Luffy fight. Luffy's speech at the end was peak emotion and peak representation of what Luffy stands for. And now we reach Wano. The Ninja Pirate Minx Samurai Alliance gather their forces in Wano Country and prepare for the inevitable clash against the Beast Pirates. The history of Kozuki Oden and his ties to Wano Country, Whitebeard and Goldie Roger are revealed, and the Alliance assaults Onigashima to take down the allied forces of Kaido and Big Mom once and for all. Here, I've got 3 episodes as candidates for the best. The first is the one I'm sure all of you will think of first. Luffy going Gear 5 for the first time. Absolute peak. Amazing animation, an iconic moment. I mean, this episode ticks all the boxes. The second episode we could consider is Oden's execution, which, okay, if we're being honest, doesn't really compare with the 5th Gear episode. But for the third episode, well, it was absolutely amazing. Episode 10-15. Now, call me crazy, but I'll go for that episode as the best of the arc. The cinematography, the emotion, the flashbacks, the voice acting, the stakes, everything was 10 out of 10 and more. Call me crazy, but I'm gonna go for that episode for Wano arc. And finally, the last arc that's still in production at the time of recording this video, Egghead Island arc. The aftermaths of both the Levelly and the raid on Onigashima, as well as the erasure of the Luluzia Kingdom, cause major shifts across the world that could lead to global war. The Straw Hat Pirates, following their log pose, arrive at the mysterious, futuristic island Egghead, where the super genius Dr. Vegapunk resides. Here, the best episodes I'm considering, at least while the arc is still unfolding that is, are the Luffy versus Kizaru episode, the Luffy versus Lucci episode, the Luffy versus Saturn and Kizaru episode, but the one I'm actually gonna choose, Kuma's flashback episode and Bonnie's 10th birthday. That thing was enough to make grown men cry, and I'm talking literally. I saw tens of people crying watching the episode. So yeah, among all the episodes in this arc so far, I don't think any one of them's gonna top this one. Thanks for watching, and click on this video next for more One Piece content. Go on, check it out!